Too many companies rush to AIify their businesses without realizing that if you don't check how your processes are working first and what should be improved around them, you're just automating the chaos that's already there. This episode of the Business Emergency Room dives into how to fix these systems first. My guest, Joe Bockerstette, breaks down how to align people, processes, and tech so your business actually scales and capitalizes on all these advantages AIification is supposed to bring. Leadership today isn't just about scaling. It's about navigating constant uncertainty, market disruptions, and high-pressure decisions. If you're dealing with chaos, bottlenecks, and relentless pressure, welcome to the Business Emergency Room. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you're here. Today, we are going to talk about structures, systems, and processes. I'm here today with Joe Bockerstette, and I'm especially excited to talk about a subject like this with him, because not only are we going to talk about what his core trait is, which is business enterprise mapping. He's also coming at it with a huge background and experience in the investment side of businesses. And so he's truly also looking at this from the value angle, which if you listen to me regularly, you know is one of the big words that I care about. Based out of Phoenix, he is a managing partner at Business Enterprise Mapping and has over more than 3 decades experience as a CEO and a business consultant and an investor. He's also worked with PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the big consulting houses, co-founded a private equity firm, et cetera, been part of venture funds and more. So excited that you can both talk about the inside angle from the company and the outside angle, because that definitely is of interest to us here. Welcome, Joe. Thank you for joining me.
Maartje, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's get into it. Can you talk us through what it is that happens when you guys come into a business that's in upheaval and turmoil? What's the stuff that you do to turn chaos around?
Right. So the overarching premise to our relationship with our clients is one of my favorite quotes in business: every organization is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. That comes out of a book by David Hanna, who worked at Procter & Gamble in the 80s. The book is Developing Organizations for High Performance. And the idea behind that is twofold, which really sets the stage for our relationship with clients. Number one, there are reasons that you perform the way you do in your business model. There are always cause and effect relationships to the outcomes and the performance that you're able to deliver. And you're able to diagnose and understand what those cause and effect relationships are. And then secondarily, it becomes your responsibility as leadership to address those shortcomings for a different set of results, a more desired set of results that you're trying to achieve. So you are able to intentionally design your business model to drive the results you're seeking to achieve relative to your customer and your marketplace.
Can we talk a little bit about symptoms, right? We're here in the emergency room. I think we see the symptoms when it's too late, right? And but I'm sure, like any consultant, you wish that your clients would reach out to you earlier than they do.
Right.
So what may be some of the really early symptoms or signals that you need to do more around your processes and your structures?
Right. So most of the outcomes of poor process management come from inefficient execution, unhappy customers. Of course, profitability isn't what we desire. We have different people doing the same things different ways, right? We don't have an understanding of exactly what we're trying to accomplish at our value proposition, both externally and internally. And so the organization is misaligned throughout the different departments relative to what we're trying to accomplish with the end customer and in the marketplace, right? So the problems we see are very, very common: lack of measurement, too many people doing things different ways, not understanding internal customers and how they affect external customers, and designing deliverables throughout the organization that meets the needs of the user community such that the products and services we ship to customers are delighting customers as an end result of a series of things lined up along the way.
Yeah, so I'm hearing inconsistent outcomes, huh? And not the results that you were expecting. And that sometimes, I think, particularly with growing businesses, there is above expected results a lot also in the beginning, and so then
Right.
sometimes the pain isn't felt so quickly, right? I would say most of the people I know like to move at speed
Right.
and don't necessarily like to do what is maybe the in-house cleanup
Right.
and the hygiene and the packing of the dishwasher, right?
Right.
What if I would want to do better and kind of formalize
Mhm.
my processes as I grow? Is that at all realistic, or is inherently this the type of thing where you at times need to pause and
Mhm.
kind
Yeah.
of take the time to actually do this work well?
Yeah, so inevitably, organizations that are growing will at some point hit the wall over a lack of people, process, and technology being lined up and in sync with one another, right? And so you feel like you're churning, you're complex, it's intimidating. I've got so many things going on. I don't have control of my business. I'm about to burst through to the next level, but I'm fearful that I won't be able to stay in control when that happens, right? In those moments is when you have to take time and study your business model, study your intentional design relative to logistics, to operations, to procurement, to sales, to marketing, to finance, to equipment, whatever it may be. And there are always ways to not only improve the efficiency of that flow, but also the effectiveness of the flow. So the effectiveness is the value we deliver to our intended customer, right? Finance, for example, has a value proposition to the organization and to external shareholders. Our value proposition is to deliver accurate financial reporting and to manage the assets effectively and efficiently as well, right? And so we're looking at the different components of the organization. The organization is only as strong as its weakest link, right? And so we are out to bring each of those elements to a level of performance that allows us to delight the external customer and the internal customer if that's who we're supplying.
Yeah, and I think we kind of know that as leaders, right? That if we in going through these processes and taking a step in place, that what we end up with after is something that's better,
Right.
and that will but it also feels painful to create that
Mm-hmm.
pause and take a
Right.
step in place. Um, what you must be well versed in some of the numbers or the examples there, right?
Mm-hmm.
uh, can you give us some examples of the fun or intricate ways that people had workarounds in their
Yeah.
systems or in their businesses that you were actually effectively completely able to strip out? I can think of this type of work of so many
Mm.
examples where you
Right.
find these completely, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you
Right.
understand how it grew there, and you're also like, how are we still operating if we're doing it this way, right?
Yeah, so I'll give you one sort of unusual example. So to back up a little bit, we work in all types of companies, sizes, shapes. We are agnostic to industry. To us, a process is a process, a business model is a business model, and we can help you design that. Now, having said that, let me give you one example. A bank we worked with, um, over 50% of all of their activities were either Excel or Outlook, even though they had an ERP system, even though they had software that in theory was workflow driven, right? What does that tell you? That tells you that everything they're doing is manual and offline. And this is a bank now passing around critical information by email and taking stuff out of the system, preparing Excel spreadsheets, and then emailing it around the organization. The cost of that manualness was enormous relative to their potential of lining up the people, the process, and the systems, the technology, in order to bring that into an inside workflow-based business model. One example, right?
Yeah, and I once worked with a client, and in doing this kind of work, we realized they were ordering still spare parts for products that they were no longer making
Right.
or contractually obliged to service or have
Right.
spare parts for.
Right.
Right. Uh,
Right.
it's just the forgotten disconnects that cost you money, and
You
so
bet.
yeah, we should all remind ourselves that in doing cleanup, we also find stuff that can go and treasures that can actually make us some money in return. If by the time, we're talking about a business emergency room, so if you're
Mhm.
doing this kind of work because things are really not in great shape, taking that time and that pause might feel even more painful.
Right.
And we often talk in this podcast also about the role that investors or a board can play
Mhm.
in kind of intervening or supporting the C-suite in making some of these difficult
Mhm.
decisions.
Right.
Um, can you talk to us a bit about that? If you would put on
Right.
your investor mantle, how would you go about
Yeah.
having that conversation maybe with your C-suite and or creating the space for them to say, hey, let's take the time and do this?
Yeah, so I'll give you another case study that gets to that illustration. We worked with a marketing firm that was a few hundred people. That it was a private ownership. The owner was going to market to sell out. He wanted to retire, and we looked at that marketing firm's operations, and they had a dissatisfied customer base, and a dissatisfied meaning it was down to maybe the 60 to 70% level of satisfaction, and they had a real dissatisfaction with their onboarding of new customers, right? And so we mapped the workflow of that delivery system, starting with a new contract, ending with the fulfillment of that contract. And what we discovered, the primary discovery, was they didn't understand exactly what their customers wanted. And so their deliverables were undefined, fuzzy, different depending on who was doing the work, loaded with error, right? And so in the redesign of their primary deliverables to their client base, they were able to dramatically improve the satisfaction of their client base, reduce the time it took to get deliverables into those clients' hands, and of course, reduce cost along the way. And so the owner was able to sell a case that they had dramatically improved the quality of the organization by streamlining and standardizing process and deliverables, and got an extreme multiple increase. I want to say 3-4 times more multiple increase on the sale, because they had a more certain case that they were able to pass across to the buyer. Right. And so buyers who understand the cause and effect relationships to outcomes of the business and understand where the opportunities lie are able to purchase or invest in that business with better certainty about what they're able to get back out on the other side, their investment return.
Yeah, yeah. So that actually takes us into the direction of exit planning, which we
Mhm.
also often talk about, right?
Right.
And that a huge chunk of the work you do, the
Mhm.
formalizing and hence making the results of the business
Mhm.
more predictable,
Right.
has a huge impact on how a third party evaluates your business, right? That
Precisely.
Yeah, because then it's much easier to say, okay, could I also run it that way and hence replicate these results? Or which part of that I could not run that way and I would run differently? If it's much
Mhm.
more a black box and you can't see the structure or the systems, yeah, you're going to risk rate that very
Right.
differently as a buyer saying, I don't know if I can replicate because I'm not sure what happens in the box. I don't know if they what happens knows what happens in the box, or if I take out their top performer, am I going to
Right.
have completely different
Right.
results? Because then it's hinging on the people, huh?
Right. Well, as a buyer, of course, you want to understand what results the business is delivering today, but you also want to understand what's underneath those results, right? Is it a well-run business that I'm going to pay a premium price for and just plug and play? Is it a troubled business that I'm probably going to pay a discount for and then desire to improve? Even in that scenario, I need to understand what the cause and effect relationships are to that ultimate performance and what I'm able to do differently to bring it up to par, so to speak, right? So it comes into play in all kinds of ways.
Okay, taking it back to my previous question, more in terms of the difficult conversation.
Mhm.
I always think in terms of roadblocks, right? Because on the one
Right.
hand, it's obvious to do this,
Mhm.
but we don't do it, right? We don't do
Right.
it. Actually, sitting down and writing stuff down and taking the time is hard. By the time it starts to really hurt us, the job
Mm-hmm.
is
Right.
bigger because there's more of it that needs to happen. Um, we all know that it's going to render value, but how much and how quick,
Mhm. Yeah.
and how much does taking a pause impact how our business runs today, or what
Right.
we also need to do in parallel to keep the business running. Um, in your experience in getting on board with clients and the hesitancy about how much do we carve out,
Mm-hmm.
can you talk a little bit about how feasible it is to do this more sequential or
Yeah.
piecemeal, or how to think about this if you're thinking, okay, I know I need to do this. How do
Mm.
I
Yeah.
get out of
Right.
my head and actually get
Right.
started with it and overcome some of those mental blockers against
Yeah,
us?
that's a great question. So we tend to start with the value stream or the order value proposition flow with a client. So it might be order entry to delivery. It might be market identification to order or to lead. So there are streams, if you will, that you want. From our perspective, we want to go where the pain points are, like the most complicated, difficult, biggest problem. Let's go there. Okay. Now, let me give you just sort of a quick illustration. Let's take an order flow. Maybe it starts with order entry and it ends with the delivery to the client, to the customer. Okay. Let's call it a product or service, doesn't matter. You're going to find in that flow between about 10 and 20 processes: order entry, production scheduling, operation, order fulfillment, maybe procurement, logistics, shipping. You get the idea, right? So let's say it's 10, just to pick a simple number. Out of those 10 processes, you're going to map probably 250 tasks, about 25 tasks a process. We use a concept called red clouds. Red clouds are the problems and opportunities preventing you from achieving your intention. If you have 250 tasks, it's going to be 350 red clouds. So to your question, what problems am I going to need to overcome? 300 to 400, let's call it. Of those 300 to 400, that's going to break down into about a dozen themes, right?
Can
That you're
you give us an example or one or two examples of what a red cloud is, or
So
what could be red cloud?
a red cloud would be, for example, undefined data that's being passed through the organization. A red
Okay.
cloud will be lack of standardization on a report. A red cloud will be I'm producing a deliverable that that my internal customer is unhappy with. Red
So
cloud will
so
be
so they're definitely problems that need solving, but also very solvable problems.
very
They're quite
tactical.
discrete
Yeah.
challenges.
So great next point. So if I've got 300 or 400 red clouds, we know from experience about 50% of those are quick wins. Quick wins are red clouds that can be solved within 90 days without major budget or major approval requirements. They are the dumb, low hanging fruit things that we just go fix. Right now, taking all that context, right, you can map and identify red clouds and the opportunities in that 15 to 20 process flow inside of 90 days. It is extremely doable quickly, and then you can implement changes over the next 3 to 6 months. So inside of 6 to 9 months, you're able to dramatically impact that system that you started originally with about 10 to 20 processes and 300 or 400 red clouds, right? We use a process method we call the Paragon method, which is our way of doing what we do, And it's a very fast method. We've been doing it for 30 something years now. So it's very repetitive and very standard on our side. We're able to very quickly get at the issues, bring clients along, and then get about fixing that and getting on to the future.
And is it then also the case that once you come in and do some of the internal mapping, I'm assuming there's also some interdependencies, and hence it sometimes doesn't make sense to start there because this
That's
is
right.
kind of the red thread, and that one needs fixing first. But once you're in that, and you kind of did wave one and wave two or whatever, how many or whatever the words you attach, that can clients then typically do some of the later work themselves also?
Yeah.
Is there also a logical handoff in that?
So our preferred relationship with clients, number one, everything we do is partnering our program director who does the work from our side with client personnel on the client side. We are teaching you to fish along the way of delivering our services. We also will train clients to do what we do. So we offer 1 week training course in how to map your business. And so in our best clients who are intending to do this enterprise wide, we will train up, say, 3 to 6 people on their side, have them work alongside us. And then after a system or two, we'll turn it over to them to carry the ball from there. That's really the preferred way we work with clients.
And this was a question I knew the answer to, Joe, but you and I both know that, especially since you've also been in the bigger consulting houses, that there's this idea that a consultant comes in and wants to stick around for as long as possible, right? And although
Right,
you
exactly.
actually represent a slightly larger organization than mine, you also are not interested to stick around longer than you're needed, right?
Yeah,
You're
we
not
want
interested in doing
sustainable.
work with clients they ultimately at some point can do themselves.
We want sustainable, self-sufficient change in a client organization. So we are out to teach you how to redesign your business model for better results, and then work alongside you to make that happen, and then turn it over to you to carry that forward.
Well, and that's also a belief in the process, right? Because if you wouldn't do that first part well, the result. And
Precisely.
so you
Yeah.
sticking around means that something's going really wrong.
Yeah.
So again, we're not here to stick around forever. We're
That's
here.
right.
We want to
Yeah.
help with a specific challenge, right?
So let me say one more thing to that. The difference between good and great in our clients is senior leadership's desire, commitment, and need to change, right? We will, working with your folks, lay it on a silver platter for you. Here is how your business model works today. Here are the problems and opportunities that come with that. Here's what you need to do to address it. We will help you do that. But the huge success stories of folks we worked with over the years is all about senior leadership grabbing hold and driving this forward, right? It's all about change at the end of the day.
Well, let me then, as a last question, bring it back to the hot topic of the day. Because if I'm hearing this, then I'm like, the reason I believe in this, and I also like this, and I think that you need to care about all this, because if you want to AIify your business,
Right.
then so can we talk about that? Can we talk about how doing this work and being good at doing this work and learning how to do this work in house is going to be, a critical success factor into whatever way you choose to AIify your business going forward?
Right. Yeah. So as an enterprise, you have a value proposition to the market, to your end customer, be it product, services, whatever it may be. A value proposition defines who your customer is. We understand what your customer's painful problem is that we're trying to solve. We understand our solution to that problem, and we know the benefit that the customer receives from that relationship. So you have a value proposition at the enterprise. You have a value proposition with each of your departments, right? Product development has a value proposition to deliver a great product that connects in the marketplace. Finance has a value proposition to deliver great financial reports and cost management enhancement with the organization, et cetera, right? And so ultimately, the purpose is to align each of those with the end requirement. A finance system is going to have 10 or 20 processes who all sync up together to deliver a great financial report and to deliver great cost management outcomes to the enterprise, right? So at the end of the day, we're trying to sync up the pieces so that the whole runs better.
Yeah. So if you know what creates value for your business and know what outcomes you want to get and have predictability in that, then you need to set up your processes such that with minimum effort and as efficient as possibly, it renders that. And as technology and capability advances and as people change and as your business matures, progresses, and grows, that changes, right? So even if what I'm hearing you also say or implied in here is that that this is a forever maintenance issue, right? And with technology development, that's a good thing. If you get good at looking at your processes and revisit them in time before they hurt you, and forever hence keep them as efficient as they can be and as fit for purpose to generate value. Yeah, easy to hear how you're winning.
The purpose of a process is to produce a great deliverable, right? And so there's a series of tasks in order to produce that great deliverable, but we have to start with designing that deliverable such that the customer of that deliverable, the user of that deliverable, is delighted with what they're receiving. Then technology can enhance making that happen, but you can't apply technology without the thoughtfulness on top of it. Right? Otherwise, you're just automating more chaos and more dissatisfaction quicker, whatever it may be. That's why so many software systems aren't used well today, because they're not lined up with who's my customer, what deliverable delights them, what's the best way to go about producing that deliverable.
We're not talking about destinations or outcomes. We're not, we get too much into the how. And we shouldn't care as much about the how if we get the outcomes we want, as long as they're indeed predictable, right? I just also want to remind everybody what you said about the red clouds, right? And that typically you find loads of room for improvement if you do this work.
Always.
But it's also easy and tangible, right? It's like punch list level. It's not complete complex dilemmas that then in itself become a master project. And the reason that you want external help when you start this is to make sure that you tee up this project in a way that you can continue running your business in parallel, that you start with the key stuff first, that you learn how to do that and make sure that those run well, so that then you, as it sprigs out, can take on the other branches that stem from that, right? So, Joe, if people after listening here today are like, hey, that sounds like something I want to know more about, or I need, or they want to know more about your books, which we didn't talk about, or other stuff that was mentioned here today, where do they go? What do they do?
So our business website is businessmapping.com. You can obviously reach me there. You can reach me on LinkedIn. Joseph Bockerstette, available on LinkedIn as well. And would love to chat.
Okay. And for those of you who are driving as you're listening, the last name is Bockerstette. All the names and links will also be in the show notes. So wherever you're picking up this podcast, you can go back later and find it there. But yeah, the business website is easy enough, right? Businessmapping.com.
Businessmapping.com.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Joe, and thank you for tuning in. I hope to have you back here on the next episode of the Business Emergency Room.
Thank you, Maartje. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you all. Bye now. That's it for this episode of the Business Emergency Room. If you are currently dealing with chaos or disruption in your business, please reach out. You can email, text, or call, and I will find a way to connect with you within 24 hours. I've helped others steer out of the storm, and I know I can help you too. Talk soon. Please like, subscribe, and share.